I began to live my life focused on capturing the moments that life brings our way, because life is filled with many, many good moments if we just are focused on recognizing that.
Welcome to Voices of Deconversion. We share the inspirational stories of deconversion told by former Christians who are now atheist or agnostic. Our stories remind us we're in it together. They encourage us as we discover who we are and help us to embrace who we become. Now here's Steve with today's guest.
Welcome back, everyone, for episode 62. Today we have a very special guest, and the episode today is going to be a little different than most episodes. We're not going to really get into in-depth his deconversion story, but he does talk about it briefly in the beginning. Really, my guest today is Dave Warnock. He is someone who's been going around on different various atheist podcasts talking about his experience being diagnosed with ALS, and the fact that he's basically been given somewhere between 2 to 5 years to live, and kind of how he's processing that, what his focus is right now for his life. And he just has so many wonderful things to say. I really appreciated the opportunity to speak with him. And I'm going to try to jump into the interview pretty quickly here. I may forget to tell you guys something. I apologize if I forget something, but you can connect with Dave on Facebook or Twitter. On Facebook, he has a Facebook page. Some of the information at the end of the episode's a little outdated because he's now got his own Facebook page here. So the best way to reach him is you can either just look him up, Dave Warnock, on Facebook. He also has a page called Dave Warnock Dying Out Loud, and he's also on Twitter, and you can find him there at DW Warnock. And anyhow, that's how you can get in touch with Dave. But you're gonna love this interview. It's great. I just had such a nice conversation with him. I think that's all I want to say before just jumping into the interview. The only other thing is we should be able to have another podcast out in about 2 weeks. It might be 3 because my family, as you'll hear in this interview, we're going out of town again, and we're going to get back right when we're moving out of our house. As many of you know, we've kind of been in the process of preparing to move, and now it's going to actually happen. But of course, for some reason, all of our vacations and moving and everything just boom happened at the same time. So it's a little chaotic, but in 2 to 3 weeks, we'll get another episode out. And before I forget, I want to remind you, if you want to hear Dave's full story, his full deconversion story can be heard on the Everyone's Agnostic podcast, episode 107. It's an amazing story, and it's definitely well worth the listen. Without any further delay, here is my interview with Dave Warnock. Well, I'll just go ahead and welcome you to the Voices of Deconversion podcast. Dave Warnock, thank you for joining me.
You bet. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So, we won't get into your story too much. I can reference previous episodes of other podcasts that you've shared your story in depth on, but right. Just for the listeners, just like a real, quick kind of overview or review of kind of what your situation was. Yeah.
The elevator pitch, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I was an evangelical Christian from the age of 18 for about 35 years until about 9 years ago. 8 years ago is about when I exited that fantasy land. For a good part of that, a good part of those years, I was a pastor. Sometimes lay pastor, sometimes on staff at churches. I've served in all the roles: associate pastor, lead pastor, youth pastor, worship pastor, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So. Long history in that. Kind of got started with Jesus and the Jesus movement back in the 70s. Did coffee houses, street ministry, all the stuff. I thought Jesus was coming back next week, and so I think he still is coming back next week. But so I skipped college and didn't do any of that because I was really focused on winning the lost and saving the world, because everything was imminent. It was very much a priority in my life to focused on the business of the kingdom. So I gave my life to that. Was married, and I'm not now. Raised 3 kids in that. And part of the backstory is that as I left faith, my 2 older daughters who are married, all my 3 kids are married, but my 2 older daughters shunned me and dissociated from me because they felt like they couldn't be in relationship with someone who was in rebellion against God.
Yeah.
So that's the nuts and bolts of that story.
Yeah, those are the highlights.
Yep.
So
lowlights.
Yeah, lowlights. Sorry. Yeah. Well, so at this, why we're talking is you're going around the country and you're going on podcasts, giving, I guess, a talk called "Dying Out Loud." So I would just love to hear kind of what your purpose is in that and kind of your experiences so far.
Yeah, so about 7 weeks ago, I was diagnosed with ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease. And so at that point, if you know, a lot of your listeners will kind of know that's a thing, but they won't know a lot about it. It basically, the prognosis is I have 3 to 5 years to live, and it progressively gets worse. It attacks the nervous system, and the nerves quit communicating with the muscles, and the muscles gradually quit working. It has started in my fingers and hands and arms, where I'm gradually losing strength in those extremities, and it will eventually go to my legs and or my tongue. They can't predict where it'll go next or how fast it'll go, and eventually it goes to your lungs, and the lungs quit working and you die. So it's a very obviously a terminal illness. It's the diagnosis that a doctor friend of mine says stops doctors in their tracks, because there's no treatment, there's no further conversation. It's just the kind of thing where they say, okay, you have ALS. You can see yourself out. The elevator's on the second door to the left. You can get dressed now. Goodbye.
I was going to ask you about that. So are there any kind of treatments? Obviously, they can't cure it, but are there any treatments to help you with any of these symptoms that you're experiencing? Yeah,
there's one medication that's FDA approved, and I'm on it. It's supposed to give you 3 to 6 months of functionality. It kind of slows the process down per chance. It's not a definite thing. It's the kind of thing they say, okay, take this and it might help you with this, and it's so it's very vague, and it's not, you know, and I'm taking it because I'm happy to have 3 to 6 months of extra functionality,
yeah.
But it doesn't. It's really not one of those things that they go, wow, we got this. You know, it's just kind of like, okay, why not?
And how long ago did you say that you received the diagnosis?
About 7 weeks ago.
About 7. So it's really, really fresh.
Yeah, it's fresh. And so what I did is immediately quit working. I was working as an insurance broker and had a very good business going there. And I immediately retired from that. I was about to move from one apartment to another, and I decided not to sign another lease for a year, and I moved in with friends, and I just kind of stripped away everything that doesn't matter, and my life now is focused on doing everything that matters to me, which is spending time with people I care about, traveling to places I haven't been, and just living life very, very focused on capturing as many good moments as I can.
Yeah, I've heard you say a couple of times you have a saying for that.
Yeah, there's 2 things, and this harkens back to when I divorced a little over 2 years ago, and that was after a long period of time. My wife remained a believer when I didn't, and because my girls were shunning me, they were also shunning her, and so there was a long period of time, several years, when there was just a life of sadness and pain, and I just had too much of that, and made a decision a couple of years ago to reboot my life, and what I began to focus on even then was living for the moments. I spent some time living on the beach for a couple of months, just kind of really some self-imposed therapy, and I came away from that with the clear knowledge that life is nothing more than a collection of moments. And there's 2 sayings that I began to live by. One is, we don't remember the days, we remember the moments. And that was a plaque on my bookshelf that I had. The other saying was, Carpe the fucking Diem. And that was on a pillow on my couch. It still is, actually. So all that means is I began to live my life focused on capturing the moments that life brings our way, because life is filled with many, many good moments if we just are focused on recognizing that. And go ahead.
What are some of those moments that you've been able to capture since you've kind of taken this more intense Carpe the fucking Diem approach? Like you were kind of on that path and then you got the diagnosis. So what are some of those moments that you've had that have been just priceless for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was on that path, and now I'm on that path on steroids. So that varies greatly, and I've reflected on that because several people have asked me that, and it's a good question. They can be anything from being at a concert with an artist that I've really loved, and then finally getting to see them live. For instance, a few months ago, an artist named Gregory Alan Isaacoff. I've been loving his music for a couple of years now, and then finally he came to Nashville to the Ryman Auditorium, which is a great venue. So I was able to hear him live, and it was just one of those moments that I just kind of sat there going, oh my God, this is amazing. A bucket list item I'd had for my whole life was to see the Mediterranean Sea. And I went to Spain last year and put my feet in the Mediterranean Ocean at Barcelona.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I had a cigar there, which I'm a big cigar lover. And I remember thinking, wow, this is a moment that I've been looking for, and here it is, and I'm living it. And it's just, it's one of those big moments. But then again, I've also reflected and seen that life is full of little moments. And so about a week, an example of that is about a week after my diagnosis, a few of my buddies, we have a huge community here in Nashville of ex-Christian atheists, of which I am, and we have a local meetup group that we meet once a month, and all of my best friends share this story. Many of us are ex-clergy. I met several of them through the Clergy Project. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yeah.
I was on the board of that until I got the diagnosis and I resigned, but several of them said, hey, Dave, we want to come by. It was while I still had my apartment, and the apartment was such a gathering place for parties and just people hanging out, and I always had people coming by, and it was really hard to leave that, but I knew I had to. But these guys came by, and Cass was one of them, Cass, and then there were 3 or 4 guys, and we just were hanging out, and we were just having drinks and talking and laughing and just nothing special, no agenda, no program, just talking, just dudes hanging out. And I remember kind of stepping out of that and looking at it as an observer, and I stopped them and I said, guys, listen, this is a moment. This is it. This is the stuff of life. And this is a beautiful, beautiful moment. And so that is the thing I'm trying to focus on and trying to bring awareness to, is that all of us, and here's the thing I realize. Most of us in this life can't just stop and just retire and travel the world and do things like I'm doing.
Yeah.
But all of us can recognize the moments that come our way if we just are aware of them, if we're looking for them. And so that's what I'm talking about. That's the, if I have a message that I'm trying to convey, that's it.
Do you feel like I know you were kind of on that path before your diagnosis, but do you feel like that's something you weren't doing in your life prior to this?
I wasn't until a few years ago because I was, like I said, I was in a marriage that we were, our worldviews were completely divergent. We weren't on the same path. We weren't getting to see our girls and our grandkids. And it was just a hard life. And I was just kind of stuck in this life that I wasn't enjoying, and I wasn't living it on my terms. I felt like I couldn't be myself in my own home. If I wanted to say fucking in my own home, because that's a word I like to use a lot, my wife would get upset about it. I don't like using that word. So, I just realized I was trapped in a world that wasn't the way I wanted to live. And I said, okay, I'm going to change this. As hard as it was, and as painful as it was, and it hurt her, and I know that, and it hurts people, when families split. But I really just decided I was going to take the pen back and write my own story.
Yeah, I think you'd said, but I was just thinking about that. You'd said that it's like someone else was writing your story, and you thought, like, I want to write my own story.
Exactly. So what we end up doing is we let the people around us write our story for us. And I know many people can't come out as atheists. I know many people that I'm in community with, they have people in their families that don't even know they're not Christians anymore. And so they kind of have to live a double life, and they have to live in a way that's secret or hidden. And I understand why they do, but I find it very, very sad because they're letting people, in some sense, write their story for them.
Yeah.
And I took some very painful and difficult steps to take the pen back and say, okay, this is my story. This is my life. I only have one, and I'm going to live it my way. I'm going to write my own fucking story.
Yeah.
And regardless of what we do in life, there are people that don't like what we do. There are people that are upset by it. And we have to decide, are we going to let them dictate what we do? Are we going to do it? Are we going to do life on our own terms? And that's what I decided to do a couple of years ago when I started rebooted my life and started over, essentially at the age of 61, which is late in life to do.
But you're doing it, and I just think it's so awesome. I just love hearing these stories. Like you said, they're little moments. You know, you're hanging out with some buddies and having drinks and just talking, or you encountered a girl at a college class who kind of resonated with your story because she's going through something similar or somewhat similar to what you're going through. And it's these simple moments that sometimes, like, that to me is eternity. It's that moment, like that's heaven, you know, in just a split second.
It is. And we miss it because we're not looking for it. We're not aware of it. We get caught up in the mundane stuff of life. And I know, like I was alluding to earlier, I know that most people, here's what I'm aware of. And I've said this before, that I've been given a bit of a gift in that sense, in that we all know we're going to die. We just don't know when or how. And I've been given a bit of a glimpse into the window of my ending. And so I'm able then to strip away all the mundane, all the unimportant, and focus on right now, this moment, this day, and find the beautiful moments in this day and not get sidetracked by all the stuff of life, where I realize that almost everyone else can't do that. You got bills to pay, you got responsibilities, you got obligations and schedules, you have to be here, you have to do that. But even in that, you can find those moments if you're looking for them. Yeah. I really believe that.
Well, and I think that's the challenge to all of us, you know, to fight for those moments, fight for setting that time aside, you know.
That's a good phrase. Yeah, fight for the moments. I like that.
Yeah, or like be deliberate about trying to set aside time for these times in life. What one thing that came to mind when you were talking was I think it's a book that was written, and what really stuck with me, I haven't read the book, but I heard it's called like something like the top 10 regrets of the dying or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the number one regret was not living life on their own terms.
That's it. That's exactly it.
You know, I think for Christians and maybe even ex-Christians, we feel like it's selfish almost. I mean, that's kind of one of my reactions. It's like, if I were to do that, like, how could I do that? Well, it doesn't mean you know, are selfish. You know, it just means that you need to live a life that's fulfilling. You know, you need to capture those good moments, and not at the expense of other people. You know what I mean? And I just think we kind of have this, at least I do, in my mind. It's almost like one or the other. And maybe that's my Christian background. I don't know.
I think it is. But I think all of us that were raised in that Christian mindset, I mean, the scripture's full of it. Deny yourself. You know, that sense of putting your own self-interest aside for the interests of others. Of God of course, is first, and you want to, you know, live for Him, and then other people, and then yourself last. Where that doesn't make any sense. And so when we come away from that, we have to give ourselves permission to be happy. We have to give ourselves permission to say, okay, I want to do this just because I want to do it. Now, it's not as long as it doesn't trample on other people, or but the reality is, a lot of things we do are going to upset other people, and we have to come to a place of being okay with that.
Well, and I do think that there's always an area of our life that we could look at and say, why am I doing this? Why am why do I have this habit, or why do I have this job?
Exactly.
Why am I in this situation when I have the full power to make it better within myself?
Exactly.
And what's telling to me is, you know, whether people, you know, we all have this sense of obligation to our job, to our family, to whatever. But at the end of the day, the thing people regret the most is that they didn't live life the way they wanted to live it. And, we're kind of, I think, as we go about our day to day, we're kind of not thinking about it. I think it is a bit of denial and a bit of like not wanting to think about and face our own death. But to me, it's just so telling, like people who are going through, a terminal illness, or who are dying, they say that's the thing. That's the thing that was most important. And, and I think if we're not careful, we don't listen to that message, we're going to be in that same boat and we're going to be regretting things too. And, that's the last thing any of us want. We want to live a fulfilling life and, feel like we did what we wanted to with our time,
And one of the things I told that girl at the class that I referenced about that moment we had when she told me she had not a terminal, but an illness that was going to put her lifespan at maybe 40 years, and she was 20, and she was asking me how, any advice for how I should live my life, and I recounted the things to her that I'd said in the class about looking for the moments, and then I said, many people have said at the end of their lives they don't regret the things they did, they regret the things they didn't do.
Yeah.
And it really resonated with her. She said she'd heard that before, and then that's when we had the hug and the tears, and it was beautiful. But that's the thing. We put things off. I'll do that tomorrow, or I don't really have time for that, or I'm too tired, or I'm too old, or I'm too this, or I'm too that. And what I began to do a couple of years ago was say no. Just don't say no when you can say yes.
Yeah.
And I started grabbing moments as they presented themselves to me, and I saw things happening that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have opened myself up to them.
Yeah. Yeah, something that came to my mind, I had a little bit of an encounter with just some of this urgency that we're talking about. Back in the fall, back in September, I went to the emergency room for like chest pains, and it was nothing. But they did a CAT scan, and they found a nodule on my thyroid. And then it turned out that was cancerous.
Oh, wow.
And luckily it's got a decent outlook and everything, but for a while there I was feeling really shitty. Of course. And I was having one of those moments, and it's funny but it's not. I was sitting on my couch, and I was drinking a lot that particular evening and just feeling bad about myself.
Right.
And I was sitting there, and we had planned a family trip, which we actually just got back from this big trip. We had never been to Europe, and we did it. We were able to make it happen. And my extended family, like my sisters and my parents, they were all going to Hawaii this summer, and I was feeling like this really sucks. Like, we can't do both. And then in that moment, sitting there feeling bad for myself, I was like, why not? I'm just going to book tickets.
Why the hell not? Right. Do it.
So I did. And we're we're in debt now, right?
But see, you'll pay that off and you'll be okay. But that's it. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Say yes to some things that you would normally say no to because you just don't know if you get that chance again.
Well, that's it. I heard you say it at the end of your interview with Cass, which was a couple years ago, but you said you ended with YOLO. You only live once.
You only live once. Boy, I believe that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's the thing. We all think that we've got all this time, and we think, okay, well, I can't do that now, but I'll do it sometime. And, a year from now, 2 years from now, when I'm older, whatever. And sometimes that comes true, but oftentimes it doesn't. For whatever reason, we just never get around to it. And another thing I want that has become interesting to me in terms of where I'm at right now is the difference in the reactions that I've had from my atheist and secular community and my Christian family and friends in their reaction to this diagnosis.
Yeah.
It's been absolutely startling to see the difference. And the best way I can summarize it is that because Christians, and when I say Christians, I know there's a broad spectrum there, but I'm referring to the tribe that I was in for 35 years, which was evangelical fundamentalism. So, believe in the inerrant word of God and a present God who answers prayer and heaven and hell and those kind of things.
Yeah.
Well, there's an absolute fetish for eternity within that community, within that tribe. Everything is about your eternal life. And what that does is it minimizes this life. It causes you to think, oh, this life is just a preseason football game. It doesn't really matter, what the score is, who plays. It doesn't matter. It's just practice for the real game. And when you think that way, when you think that the real game is heaven or hell, if you're on the wrong side of the coin, then you're going to minimize the value of this life. And so as my Christian family and friends are dealing with this diagnosis with me, they don't know what the hell to do with it. And so the best they can offer is prayer. And I think because they don't tell me what they're praying for, because they know what I think about prayer, I'm most sure that they're praying that I'll return to God before I die. And so they're not that concerned with the fact that I'm dying, because after all, this is just a warm-up game. And so they don't know how to embrace me in this moment. They don't know how to crawl into my pain with me. They don't know how to run toward this issue.
Well,
so they just avoid it. They just deny it.
Yeah, and I heard you say that the secular community, sometimes they don't know what to say either, but they'll say they don't have words. They'll say...
That's a huge thing. I can't emphasize that strongly enough. When someone says, I have no words, I just love you, and I'm so sorry. When they say the words, I have no words, it's much more valuable than simply not saying the words. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because many of us have been there. We've been in that moment trying to comfort a loved one and not knowing what to say, because sometimes there isn't anything to say.
And that's what the case with this. There are no words for this. It fucking sucks. But when you say that, and that's what my friends have done. They've just surrounded me. I am just utterly surrounded with support from my secular community. It's just amazing. I mean, I've got people that are asking me if it's okay if they're with me at the end. Wow. They want to be with me at the end. I just can't even get over that. I can't even comprehend that. But they want that. They want the privilege of being with me and being present with me all the way through the end of it.
That just to me is just such a special gift,
It's overwhelming. And I say, of course you can. I mean, do you want to? Absolutely. I would consider it an honor.
Wow.
So that's the kind of support I'm getting from these people. And they're all the time, hey, Dave, I've been thinking about you. I love you. All that kind of stuff. And just those simple messages. I get them every day, all the time. But the Christians just don't know what to do, so they do nothing.
Well, it's ironic, too, because they're the ones who are supposed to have kind of this, they're supposed to be the only ones who know how to truly love people.
Exactly.
And here they are in life's biggest moment, completely failing.
But it's because of their disregard for this current life. I truly think that's it. And they're absolutely enamored with eternal life, because that's the pinnacle of their whole message. And it's all about heaven. And we sure hope that Dave can avoid hell, because after all, that's all that really matters, is whether he goes to heaven or hell. It doesn't really matter what's happening in this life. And because that's their focus, they don't know how to embrace this life. And I feel really sorry for them, because this life is what we have, and it's absolutely beautiful. And it's a privilege to live every single day. And to minimize that is, to me, a travesty.
Yeah, it's tragic, because this is the only life that we know of.
Exactly.
And to think you've wasted it. I mean, we all who've deconverted have sort of a microcosm of that, in that we look back and go, man, I was a Christian all those years and I didn't follow my passions in life, or I didn't do things I wanted to do because I was a Christian. So we kind of get a little taste of that. But this is on a bigger scale. This is your entire life, not seizing those moments, not making the most of life. And this is it. And I mean, you're going to have squandered it for nothing, for something that's not even true,
to spending your time focused on a fairy tale and believing it's true. I mean, we all have regrets. I spent 3.5 decades in evangelicalism, and I regret that tremendously. I look back on that and say, wow, what a wasted life. But I don't beat myself up about it, because I know I was doing the best I could, and we all were. We all do the best we can. But I look at it and say, wow, it was such a waste, and it was such a ridiculous focus on things that don't matter. And so this is what matters, is how we're living now and what we're making of each day that we have.
So I was, a former Christian, and I consider that kind of, not to use too strong a word, but delusional. It was a delusion.
It is.
And I think, like, I'll speak for myself, it's hard for me to face death. I think I was drinking more, and I think I was depressed because I didn't want to think about it.
Right.
Do you think it's better, in your opinion, to like face it head on and try to deal with it like directly, death, or do you think that it's okay to just be where you're at? Like, it's okay to just not have to think about it. I mean, what's your opinion on that?
Well, that's a good question, and I've had a lot of people asking me, how are you being so positive about this? How are you, talking about it, dying out loud? I mean, I've had people say, if this has happened to me, I think I would have crawled in a hole and disappeared. I don't know. We don't never ever know how we'll do what we do until we're there, until we're faced with it. So I think it's an impossible question to answer. But all I know is what I feel and what I do, and I just felt in that moment. I mean, when I got the diagnosis, it was blunt. He wasn't uncaring, the doctor. He just was telling me, and I asked him to. I said, don't shoot the shit with me. Just give me the straight poop. Is this what I have? And he said, yes, it is. And he said, I hate to give you this diagnosis. I'm very sorry, but you have ALS. And in that moment, it just dropped on me, and then literally he said, I said, oh, okay, thank you. That's what I needed to know. And then he paused a minute, and he looked around. And he said, okay, so when you leave, that's the exit. The elevator's around the corner, and that was it.
Wow.
And it was just this weird feeling like, okay, my life just changed.
And it's surreal almost, like.
It really is.
Just like, okay, now, your appointment's over.
Yeah, I said, should I get dressed? Yeah, go ahead and get dressed.
So bizarre.
And again, I'm saying he wasn't being unkind. He was just, I asked him, be blunt with me, tell me the truth. And so I needed to know. I knew I'd been having symptoms. I knew something was wrong. I just wanted to know what it was. And so it was kind of a relief to know what it was. But at the same time, I said, oh, wow, I've got a few years to live.
It's funny, when you're talking, it made me kind of realize, like, in my own kind of maybe preoccupation with, like, am I denying death or whatever? Am I not facing it? Like, your whole message is not you need to face death, but embrace life.
That's it. And that's the point. And again, I don't want to oversell this. There are days when I look at there are moments when it just kind of slaps me in the face, and I realize, oh my God, this is going to get really bad. This is not good. This really sucks. But I would say that's like 10% of my waking moments, and the 90% of it is, okay, what can I do? Where am I going? Who am I going to get with? I do need to stay busy. I need to stay focused. That's why I love doing these podcasts. I love traveling to speak, not only to speak, but to travel to places and see people. And I just got back from a weekend in Charleston, South Carolina, and it was great just to get away and be with someone that I care about. And so if I don't have those moments, those things that I'm focused on and looking forward to, it can get really dark really fast. Yeah. Because then I wake up in the morning and I go, wow, why even get out of bed? What's the point? I'm just dying. What's the point? So I don't want to say I got this. I don't got this. It sucks. I'm dying. I hate it. I don't want to die, but I'm focused on living, and I'm not spending time thinking about the fact that I'm dying. And so my energy is going toward, how can I live this life? How can I live these moments? How can I find the moments? How can I live the days in the best ways that I can? And that's really all I can do. And I don't know why I'm doing it that way. It's just what comes to me. It's just who I am and how I'm wired. That's all I know how to say.
Yeah,
that's just it.
Well, and I know that, like you're saying, you're going through a difficult process. So it's not like you've just turned on the rose-colored glasses and everything's positive. But in spite of the fact that you're having ups and downs, I personally just want to tell you, like, I'm very inspired by what you're doing, and I'm very grateful for just hearing your story. Just, on other podcasts, the fact that you're spending time with people. I think it's great. So I guess I'll just say that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and
Yeah.
I've had really really overwhelming feedback on this, and it's been gratifying to know that you can say something that means something to someone, and that that's really all we have is the things we do in the course of a day. Can they help someone else? Can they make a difference in somebody's life? And I love that. I think that's awesome. I'm very thankful for that. And I'm going to keep doing that as long as I can and as much as I can, because I find value in that.
Have you, I don't know if you watch many Netflix shows or, have you seen Afterlife with Ricky Gervais?
Yes, I've been watching that.
Okay.
I love him. I love Ricky. He's awesome.
Oh, he's the best. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to spoil it. Have you seen all the episodes?
No, I think I'm
Okay.
4 or 5 in. I don't know.
Well, one of the messages in it that I got from it was exactly that. Like, living life. The purpose of life is other people doing,
Right.
Doing good while you're here.
Right.
And so it's something that I think because Christians are so focused on the eternity, it seems minuscule or it seems insignificant to them, but it's everything.
It is everything. It is everything. And back when I was a Christian and when I was a minister in ministry, I thought that I was helping people, and I tried to, and I know that I did good for people in the real life. I would counsel with them, help them through their marriages, help them through their whatever, and I did good things for people in this life. But my overarching message was, are you in the right, do you have the right belief system that'll guarantee you the right outcome whereas eternity is concerned? And so a big part of my ministry and my message as a Christian was focused on stuff that's really not true.
Yeah.
It's delusional, like you said. It's a fairy tale. And I say that, I'm not, again, I don't say that with conviction. I just say that all the evidence points toward that. So I'll say that I don't believe it. But my focus now is on what's real in the here and now, in the life we're living, the one we do know we have.
Yeah. Well, I know something else that's kind of close to your heart is this idea of like, there are certain states in our country where you have the right to end your life if you have a terminal illness.
I think you live in one.
Yes, we do. Yeah, and in fact, I was going to say what I know of it, and you may know more than I do.
I don't. I haven't begun to look into it yet.
I think they said something like it in Washington, and it's different elsewhere. I think every state's different, but you have to be within 6 months of, I guess, that's your life. When your life expectancy is that close, then they'll do it. So there's still some real strict limitations on it. But what do you want to say about that?
Well, I want to get involved in advocating for that in Tennessee, where I live, because it's not legal here because Jesus, and because you can't play God with people's lives. But nonetheless, I think it's bullshit. I think it should be legal, and I think it would be if religion weren't so prevalent in this country. And I think it's clear to see that the states where it is legal are the more liberal states in this country. I think there's a reason for that. But I do want to say that I think, even the whole 6-month window is ridiculous, because with me personally, with my disease, 6 months from the end will be a fucking nightmare. Yeah. By that time, I will be completely debilitated and depending on people to help me do the basic functions of life. And to force someone to get to that degree of life, which is not life, it's just living. It's not even living, it's staying alive. Yeah. It's existing. And I think the fact that even we put that kind of limitation on it, the reality is all the science and the evidence points toward the truth that my disease will end in death within 2 to 3 or 4 years. Yeah. It should be completely legal for me to say, you know what, as soon as I can't do the things I want to do, the way that I want to do them, I should have the right to end this. Yeah. And I want to advocate for that, and I will find the ways to do it in whatever legality is concerned. I think you have to be a resident, for a certain period of time or whatever. So I may need to move in with you.
There you go. Hey, whatever you need to do.
So no, I really do want to focus. I think that's an important message, and we need to fight against that.
Yeah,
and I'm sure there's no laws that are going to be passed in Tennessee. I know how that goes here. I have friends of mine that have been fighting hard against for LGBT issues, and it's just an uphill battle all the fucking time.
Yeah.
We live in such a red state here, and it's just so discouraging. But I want to lend my voice to that, and I want to get involved in that battle because I think it's important.
Oh, so important. I mean, when you were talking about it, I was just thinking, it's. I mean, you're forcing people to suffer, for no good
immoral.
reason.
It's inhumane. It's inhumane. It's immoral. It's a travesty.
Yeah.
And so if I can go and lobby at the State House, and I'll get on, I'll get up in front of any congressional committee and I'll say what I just said because I believe it with every fiber of my being. I'll look them in the face and I say, you're a bunch of immoral bastards for forcing me to live. What right do you think you have? And I'm sure they'll throw me out, but I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, this is your life. You know what I mean?
It's my life. What right do you have? You're the one playing God here.
Yeah. Speaking of playing God, right?
Turn it over. I mean, who's playing God here? Not me. You are.
Wow. Yeah,
right?
It's like you said, it's really frustrating, especially for folks like you who live in Tennessee or live in the South.
This state, these southern states, they just make me bang my head against a brick wall.
Yeah, wasn't there recently an atheist who was elected to government down there, or
Sheesh, where?
I thought wasn't it? I thought running for
think it was
public
in Tennessee.
office.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't.
okay.
I think it was. Where was that? Yeah, Gail, a friend of
That's
ours here.
it.
Yeah, she was running. Yeah, she didn't get me votes.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
She wasn't
gotcha.
elected, but she put her hat in she threw her hat in the ring.
Well, maybe it won't happen soon, but we'll cross our fingers that things start changing.
Yeah, you got to start with that, and I applaud her for getting out there and doing that. Yeah, you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah. Well, what else? What else do you want to say, or what other things are kind of on your mind these days?
Well, that's the gist of it. I just want to bring that message out. I want to, it's important to me to talk about dying out loud. I think we're afraid of it. I think we deny it. I don't think it's something to fear. The Bible teaches that. Death is the last enemy that is to be defeated. It's not a fucking enemy. It's a part of life. So I'm sorry for saying the F word so many times.
No,
you
you're
have
fine.
to bleep those out. I don't know which audience is used to.
I won't bleep them out. Keep them in.
It's one of my favorite words. I went years without being able to say it, so now I'm trying to make up for that.
Right.
But I just think we need to take the mystery off of it. It's a part of our existence as humans, and the best we can do is to embrace it and acknowledge that it's going to happen, and hopefully turn around and say, okay, rather than being afraid of dying, let's be afraid of actually not living. And that's my focus. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of not living my best life.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of wasting it. I'm afraid of running out of time before I've done the things I want to do. And so, those of us that don't have a deadline like I do, focus on living your best life. I love what you said about, why can't I take this trip? Yes, I'll take this trip. Of course I will. Do it, man.
Yeah.
Do it. I love that.
Yeah, it took a few beers, but...
Whatever it takes, man.
Then I was like, I don't care. I'm just going to book it right now. And then it was like, oh, okay, how are we going to make this work? Oh, my wife doesn't have vacation time? Uh-oh.
You sobered up and said, oh, shit.
Yeah. Yeah. But I have a friend at work who jokes about drunk shopping all the time. And I was like, you've inspired me, so I did it.
No, you know what? But years down the road, when you've paid that off and you said, oh, wow, that was a great experience. And that's what we have, man. We have moments.
Yeah.
And you'll have some great moments, and that's what you'll remember. You won't remember, if we didn't spend that money. What did you do with that money? You paid a few bills, or you did this, or whatever. So what?
You know? Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's funny, too, because it even comes down to the small things. Like, we were at the airport about to come home from our trip. We went to Germany and Switzerland. Mm-hmm. Well, mostly Germany. But we were in the airport in Switzerland, and my wife wanted to get one of those Starbucks cups that say, Zurich on it.
Right.
She's like, well, I want the Switzerland one, but I also want the Zurich one. Which one should I get? And I was like, just get both. Like,
exactly.
We're never coming back. Like, it'll be a little
Exactly.
memory you'll have forever, and...
That's the thing. That's it right there. You've got it, man. That's the spirit. You know, say yes to whatever you can say yes to, and quit saying no all the time. We say no because for stupid reasons. You know.
Yeah. Stuff that for reasons that don't matter ultimately, for non-essential reasons.
They really don't.
Some hang-up we have or some stupid obligation we have to our job or something. And instead of just doing what feels right, doing the thing we need to do.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's basically it, man. I just want to continue to bring that to the forefront of the conversation and do what I can in one little voice in the universe saying, okay, this is what could be important. Let's pay some attention to this.
Well, Dave, I really, again, appreciate so much what you're doing, just being a voice and doing what you can to spread the word about these important issues. And it's an inspiring message, and I think it's an important one. And, all of us need to take seriously what you're saying. And so I'm grateful that you've carved out, a little hour out of your day to sit down with me and share these feelings and thoughts that you have.
Well, I love doing this, and I'm really looking forward to doing more of them. And whoever of your listeners want to connect with me, I'm sure you'll put like connection points from Cass or Marie, who helps him with his podcast, Everyone's Agnostic Podcast. Mm-hmm. To ways that they can connect with me through Facebook or my email or my phone number.
Yeah, do you have a preferred way that you like people to reach out?
Yeah, just reach out to Cass and Marie will she helps him with it, and she coordinates all my schedule and all my communications, and anybody that wants to connect with me, she'll make sure that they can, and I'm happy to do that in any way possible.
Yeah, and I have that email that she put out because obviously I connected with her
right
to do this interview. So and she's been great. She's so great at like just being on top of this stuff.
She's an animal, man. She's all over it, and so she's helping me coordinate all this stuff, and people that are wanting to connect with me, even if they have further questions or any kind of connection at all, I'm happy to do it. I just love connecting with people.
Well, I have to end the interview this way. Dave, Carpe the fucking Diem.
Carpe the fucking Diem, my man.
All right, awesome.
Thanks for listening to Voices of Deconversion. Be sure to join us next time by subscribing to the podcast.